Okay, so video 6. Here we're going to deal with the struggle of the XX chromosome, and I know some of you males saying, I don't want to listen to that because I'm not a female, but it is still important for you to listen to that one because it's part of your X chromosome. So that's part of some of the consciousness potentials that you are to develop as well once you have reconfigured and transformed and transcended the Y chromosome into its highest potentials, its highest purity rate, its highest standards, and its highest progression rate. You will activate the next level of the X chromosome, where you will shift or build the extra leg on your Y chromosome, so it becomes an X chromosome, and then you will, in doing so, reconfigure your X chromosome into building the extra leg on that one, so it becomes the 5th cycle chromosome. So you have 2 legs to build, so you have 2 cycles to complete before you move on. Whereas females, yes, we have the XX, which are tied to 2 different 4th cycle features of our species, of the female molecular state. But we are still on the same configuration, even though we are having the highest potential in the 1st X chromosome that ties to the 4th cycle before the fall of Atlantis, which we could say for many are connected to Lemuria or parts of the earlier versions of the Atlantis civilizations. And then we had the reseeding after, which again were under what we call specific types of females, where many of them, unfortunately, in the 4th cycle after the fall of Atlantis, succumbed to the 2-8 pillar contamination, and by that linked up to previous female versions or female consciousness structures of the 2-8 pillar, which the X chromosome is their completion of. So the Y chromosome, when it's completed, it's the 1-7 pillar. The X chromosome, when it's completed, it's the 2-8 pillar code systems. The consciousness potentials again goes with the 4-10 pillar consciousness potentials that are developed into the specificities, if that's a word, into the different levels of the 4-10 pillar work, which you can find when you go into the template science courses, but also in the whole philosophy book and other places. And since the 4-10 pillar in many ways are not relevant right now, because that in many ways we succeeded the 4-10 pillar in Lemuria, so it's already done. It's part of the elder the elder races, it's part of the advisory boards, it's part of the holographic teaching system, it's part of the council orientation, it's the ability to address the councils, its ability to become part of the councils, which both males and females in the 4th cycle before the fall of Atlantis had the ability to do. So anybody could address the councils because we had the code systems in us. So the female 4-10 pillar goes into not only this council responsibility, elder race responsibility, the top level, the governance of the system, which is individually, individually based. It's not about an organ or an institution where things are decided. It is on the council level, but that's the members of the councils are from all galaxies and all levels of races and dimensions and domains and densities. And by that, anyone can access the council and participate in the council meetings, and by that have a say in the decisions made there. But it's always for the highest good of the many, so therefore the decisions that are made there are a joint decision of this is the path forward, which is understood because in the councils we're seeing things from all angles of reality. So we're literally running through the entire network in all of its concentric cycles around the nodal point that is the core of that system. So you have the lattice network with core systems connected together in that network, and then you have the concentric cycles around which are the domains where the different species unfold their consciousness potentials using the energies of the entire universal grid. That's the light pattern, and that is imbued with codes, which defines the lattice network as code systems. And in that are seeded different forms of genetics into the core, which then radiates out into the different domains in a 12-pointed star configuration from where the racial lineages unfold their consciousness potentials. That's the seeding of races, and not eggs and sperm that are being harvested by the Greys and then quote unquote seeded in an organic vessel. That's a very low level after timeline event type of seeding, which is from the technocratic races and not the progressive worlds. We don't seed offlings like that. That's what the technocratic humanoid regressed races do, because they have lost the ability to manifest physical forms on their own and therefore are artificially creating their organic vessels. The progressive worlds can do that as well, but we can dismantle them by our consciousness potentials and the understanding of how the holographic network works in us as part of the reality field that we are part of. And that's the main feature that we learn in the 410 cycle. So that's the highest level of the X chromosome, where we truly understand the reality we're part of and can work with it as part of a joint effort to elevate their energy network behind all realities. So therefore we can tap into these holographic networks and work with them directly, because our heart is configured the right way for the highest good of the many. And therefore when we approach the reality energies and are working with the reality energies, whether we're working with the plants in our home or the structure we are a part of, as we call the houses, but they are very difficult to work with energetically. It takes a very long time to work with the holographic levels, the crystalline networks in our housing today, because it's very solidified. It's the lowest level of crystallization, so there's not much holographic light code system in the molecular state of our housing today, which is why we can't make the walls shine with light as we used to, and which we can do in other realities where energies are fluid and can go between the crystallized state, where they can take form and become decrystallized into a fluid holographic code system where we can alter the features and the properties of the materials we're working with. So that's what the X chromosome can do. So you have the Y chromosome that conquers space, but the X chromosome are working with the reality field energies themselves in the understanding of coding, recoding, construction, deconstruction, crystallization, dematerialization, building in more light, building in more higher forms of energy for the wholeness of the reality that we are part of. So we are not just putting light into the walls of our houses because it's energy saving, as in we'll have a lower bill to pay and we'll not use frequency energies to light up our houses and technological artificial light bulbs, but we are working with the material themselves and altering their crystalline holographic structure by imbuing it with a higher type of energy which can connect to our consciousness. So the matter is not to save money, quote unquote, but it is to transform energies into the highest potentials, into the highest purity rate, which we can do in all of the materials that is around us. And that's some of the things we're working with in Atlantis. And people say, oh, can we levitate stones and blah, blah, blah. It was a matter of crystallization, decrystallization. It's a matter of changing the properties of the solidified matter into a lighter version of it, and then use the light of the holographic network, as I talk about the crafts are doing as well, and then transport the lighter material following these this lattice network of holographic energy that is part of all levels of all realities. Not as much in the base program, it's in the 6th dimension. But technically, birds fly on that lattice network as well. They connect to the lattice network. They are not navigating via a magnetic resonance field in their brain, as scientists have thought it is. No, it's actually part of their heart field, and they reconnect to the lattice network of a reality, and that enables them to fly in the same manner as the crafts do. That's why they can navigate in all sorts of weird ways. Birds can navigate the way crafts do, except from the acceleration, right? You would be very, sorry, that's funny. That's my sense of humor. Some seagull suddenly accelerated to the speed of light. That would be interesting. Anyway, so that's just a change of vibration that you can do that when you work on the lattice net where you're connected to it. And the crafts are not having a hard field, but they have a sphere of energy in the middle of the craft that both has a mechanical component, which you can see when the craft is standing still, but it ignites into its density component when it's operated by two operators, typically two operators, which is the usual way to operate a craft again, so that one has the spatial feature configuration and the other one has the inner dimensional feature operational, so that it's an inner outer. You have the core of it and you have the surrounding concentric circles around it, which then works in the same configuration as our reality fields that are also having the lattice network, the spatial features, and then the concentric circles that are vibrating in different domains, having different densities and different dimensional features. So that's kind of what the fourth cycle teaches you how to do that. So that's, again, when we talk about why it's important to have order, balance, and harmony, because when you work with light, that's the harmony. And when you work with balance and order, you understand that when you interfere with reality directly, you cannot take your personal, whatever, what you call it, idiosyncrasies and push them into the reality field network, which would harm all races on all levels because we're all interconnected. So therefore, the segregation dynamics are a huge part of that one. Barriers have been built. Code stream walls have been inserted with the systems where the Y chromosome have got stuck in the third cycle and are pursuing power using the reality network and the reality energies to gain more personal power instead of using it for the highest good of the many. So that's the difference there when we talk into the X chromosome. And that's where I want to go with the challenges of female, because the female factory setting with the breeding program and that we need a male to complete us is a base program, control program. We do not need the Y chromosome energy whatsoever. We do not need the Y chromosome energy whatsoever. We've already completed that. We have learned the outer space configuration, even though many of you are not thinking about it much because you've already done that. You don't feel the need to conquer space anymore. We already did that in the third cycle. No, our challenge is to conquer the inner space. The same with the males. They need to, when they go with the X chromosome, they go to the inner space. So they go from the outer space to the inner space. And I know some of you females, we do have the outer space, but we have it in others. Our outer space is others. We are oriented towards their inner space. So we're all about others and their inner space. What do they think? What do they feel? What do they see about me? What do they mean about me? Etc., etc. What do they feel about me? And what are they saying about me? All of this female gossipy, low-level orientation of the highest understanding of the true nature of empathy. We have twisted it into a distorted, self-oriented fear of what other things about us, instead of learning to see things as they truly are and appreciate others as the beings they are and what they need, and use empathy in the correct way. So that's some of the distortion. And some of the females that are very sensitive and get very empathic, and males are doing that, that's the X chromosome. Again, I'm being very empathic and I'm absorbing the energies of others and I'm getting imprints, which we all do. But then it becomes a part of the parasitic jumping part, which is part of the female program that has been oriented in that direction. That's how the astral plane is affecting us and contaminating us. So even if we say, well, I don't want to do the whole sexual encounter with the Y chromosome and get the Y chromosome in and the dark energies of the males, which are connected to the Y chromosome. All males have that darkness in them without a shred of a doubt. There are a few males that don't, but then they are so parasitic and linked up to elementals that they are just as bad to get in contact with. So females say, well, I don't want anything to do with males. I'm just doing my sisterhoods. I'm just doing the female fraternities as the archetype of the Maria Magdalena discipleship, the maidens as she called them. And turning into this whole purity, which are seen in this distorted version in the nuns, which of course are married to Christ, so that's where they get the Y chromosome there, right, in the Baal religion, so that does not work. Or, again, the females that then, once Maria Magdalena, so to speak, she fell, and Miriam, she fell completely, and she adhered to some of the Dark Masters. Then her maidens were taken over by the Dark Masters in the last times of the 4th cycle. Anyways, that's just so this whole kind of warlock, maiden, witches bullshit, that is also part of the female history and our collective consciousness, which we are dealing with. So many females, when they begin to activate the higher levels of the X chromosome, they fall into the trap of the collective female consciousness in what we call the later 4 cycles, again, of Atlantis, as well as the reseeding. So many times over the course of history, where females think that they need a master, or a master approach them, or a male approach them and say, well, work with me and then we can do the twin souls or whatever. The whole twin soul is all about a dark master entity that links up and takes possession of the female energy to get a purified version of the X chromosomal energy, because they have destroyed their own X chromosomal features and possibilities. So that's the whole twin soul. It's all again about a parasitic harvesting of the female energy. So our big challenge is to understand that we don't need males in any ways or forms, but we do, some females do have, due to the collective, and the many times females have fell into the trap and have tried to help and assist the YX chromosomal. It's a program of females that we can save the males, right? It's a program we have. And it goes back to Atlantis, or the reseeding after the fall of Atlantis, because there actually was a group of females that got the job to assist certain groups of the reseeded males to learn how to develop their X chromosome. These are what we call the mother-son configurations that were instilled at the time. Anyways, we also know that has failed, because females, mothers, are not particularly good at showing their males how to develop their X chromosome, are they? Similarly, as fathers are not good at showing the females how to avoid the Y chromosome. Yes, I meant that. I said that. The mothers are supposed to show their sons to develop their X chromosome, mentoring them to shift from the spatial maleness into the correct wholeness, unity, responsibility, X chromosome consciousness structure. And as if that is going to assist it. But that's some of the ideas of the breeding programs that have been instilled here. Well, the boy was born from the mother, and by that he should have the correct configuration. But if the mother is a low-level creature that is linked up to the Kali energies and the dark worlds of this fallen second cycle, well, then he will become a dark X and a dark Y, and that is not a good combination, right? So that's some of the reasons why these mother-son communities were targeted by the groups of females that had the Lilith genome under the Dark Masters, and infiltrated these groups of female communities that were to assist these. Sorry about that. These it's difficult for me to talk about, because it ties into some collective consciousness that are connected to the Pleiadian genome, because that's some of the things they did. in the Pleiadian system, mentoring, but they did not give birth to these boys. Anyways, I'm not going further down the path. Each and one of you must discover what program you have been part of in your attempt to save, upgrade, assist, develop, progress the Y chromosome. My take on that one is a simple one. It's a matter of a dysfunctional D13 flawed genetics. Genetic structure that should have been eradicated from the beginning and should not have been put into 3 lineages. I am very clear on that one. So I do not endorse any of these mother-son programs, any of these ideas that females can assist males in recreating them, which, as I said, the councils try to get me to work on with this guy, and that's where it led into all of the darkest levels of the Y chromosome, because the more light I shone to that one, the more darkness, the more furious the warden got, the more negative and dark and vicious the snake that is curled around the collective male consciousness potentials on this planet became, and the more it grew of darkness in him. And then, of course, as I tried to reconfigure his Lemurian X chromosome configuration, he was not there long enough because he didn't have the patience for the work, and he got quickly overtaken by scavenger reptoids that were targeting him, and then led a Lilith Tiamat, dark Tiamat female his way. So, and then he merged fields with her in energy work. And by that, the work I had done, instead of having the light codes of the Lemurian continent of the female type of 4th cycle energy before the fall of Atlantis, he then went into the dark female configuration. And then he was already dispositioned for it, because I had different encounters with the different females entities in him, and they were definitely of the dark version of it, including his mother. So anyway, so these are just, when we talk about these things, I am on the line with the different groups that are trying to do the transition of humanity. I don't see the males have a particularly good chance in doing the transition. And it comes down to the fact that the Y chromosomes connect to the D13 collective, whereas the X chromosomes connect to the D14 collective. But the X chromosome has its flaws as well. And that goes with the Dracos, it goes with the elementals, it goes with the avian races, it goes with the wrongful use of sexual energy again. It goes with females, the factory setting that we need a male to fulfill ourselves. It goes with the factory setting that we need to breed children to fulfill ourselves. So we have a lot of factory settings we need to get rid of. I go in the line of the maidens, but without having the teaching system of Miriam, because as you know, she fell as well. So therefore that teaching, that attempt to seed in that teachings of the females of the Joshua Miriam missions failed. He was supposed to assist the Y chromosomes, and she was supposed to assist the X chromosomes, or the Pleiadian teaching system, and he was the Syrian. The Syrians have been focusing on the Y chromosome. And all of this has failed, both of them. So there are none, oh, this is good, let's go in there and join this one, and that's the way to go around it. But it's part of our collective, part of the collective, female collective consciousness field. As we begin to activate, we will be drawn into the priestess archetype, the vicar, witch archetype. The difference there, the vicar is the one that works with nature forces, elementals, fairies, plants, herbs, what have you. The witches are the ones that are working in the ways that they have either taught as part of the darks, priestess societies of Egypt, that were replay of what happened in the last time of Atlantis, where the priestesses were to carry the Lemurian lineages into the temples, assisting again the Atlantean priest, which at the time had deteriorating 5th cycle chromosome, and trying to work with the females of Lemuria, having that genetic in them of the D14 collective, thinking that using the original version of the dragon consciousness units And that lineage, then that would restore their original XY chromosome configuration, because at the time that, of course, were not seen as we're seeing it, I would then say were in the fourth and fifth cycle consciousness configuration, and their code systems, trying to have the Lemurian code systems around them in the form of the female that would carry both the fourth cycle of before Atlantis and carried into the fifth cycle type of consciousness structure inside Atlantis. So we had already had this, all of us, but we lost it, and men more so, reverting back into the third cycle, where females just kind of, we lost our fifth cycle potentials, but we are having the fourth cycle potentials still. But we have one version of it that is a higher level, and another version of it that's the lower level, and that's the lower level that we need to purify. Our higher level is technically the X to the left, and our lower level is the one to the right, whereas males have the Y chromosome to the left and the X chromosome to the right. So you could say it's the opposite for males as it is for females. Our weaknesses on the left X chromosome, we need to upgrade that one. Our weaknesses, sorry about that. One over again. Our weakness is in the right side X chromosome. That's the fourth cycle, the reseeding. And our strength is in the left side, which is why many females are discovering that they have got inserted technology in their left side. It's been weakened. The X chromosome on our left side of our genomic structure has been weakened, and that's reflected into a weak left side. So we have our strength there, so that has been weakened. For males, they have the weakness in the left side as well, but they also have the weakness on the right side. So they don't really have any strength, but the strength is in the right side, which has then been weakened, which means that their right side, their feminine side, quote unquote, has been weakened. We see it as our masculine side have been weakened, which is not the truth. It's the female X chromosome of the fourth cycle before the fall of Atlantis that's been weakened and are symbolized in the left side. Nothing to do with male energy. We do not need male consciousness. Not at all. Forget about it. It's not about reconnecting to the inner male, as Jung also proposed, as in our anima, the father figure. Yes, you need to clear your father figure out. You need to transform that version of your dad so you don't keep projecting the needs and the need for love, quote unquote, you never got from your dad into all sorts of guys that are to fulfill that longing that you have because your father never gave you what you truly needed, or he perverted you, or he distorted you, or he abused you, or whatever. And that becomes the projection that we send out, which attract certain males to come our way. These becomes our partner. They are a replicate, a replay of what we should have cleared with our father. Clear your father issues and all of your father imprint and the side of the fetal pattern you have from your father. Then you will have no need for the male energy, because we don't need it. We need to reconfigure into, you need to clear the fetal pattern mother's side, and you need to clear the fetal pattern of the father's side, and then recreate your own female consciousness pattern in this life, reconfiguring your personality structure. Males need to get rid of the male-female configuration from mother and father as well to become individual beings. That's the individualization for males. They get rid of father-mother configuration to become individual beings that stand on their own 2 feet. Females get rid of the male and female configuration from their parents, also to become individualized beings, so they are not sons and daughters. We do that so we stop being sons and daughters and become mature beings in our own right. We individualize, we become independent beings when we get rid of the fetal patterns that we have got from our parents. But that's a transformation work. Once we have got that, then we can work with who and what am I in this life? Who and what am I as an individual when I'm not the product of the energies of my parents that were merged together in a physical activity breeding a new life form imbued in distorted, perverted sexual energy. So that's why you need to get rid of that one, so you can reconnect to your higher order energy system and the template consciousness units that has nothing to do with the fictional, which is interesting, the physical biocodes that were merged in sexual activity that became the fictional. So therefore, your highest potentials, your consciousness potentials are fixed in a biofield that is determined by the contamination, infection, and perversion of your parents. And then you say, well, will it then help if people breed without orgasms and sexual desires? They shouldn't breed at all. We are overpopulated. There's no need for more children on this planet. There's no more need for vessels that are walking around soulless, energy connected to the program, keeping it functional and in play. That's what these bodies with lower fields are doing right now, and they're being contaminated and taken over and possessed by insectoid and low-level creatures and whatever. No need to breed more of these. Let me put it this way, I don't think there are many quote-unquote souls that at all will choose to incarnate on this planet in the future. So whatever is being bred will be empty vessels. And they will be possessed by everything else. So those of you of the younger generation, my advice would be, don't reproduce. Use all of what you have got in this life, everything you're doing in this life, to recreate your original energy system, to recreate the original fifth chromosomal feature of the fifth cycle. There is plenty to be done on this planet where we can contribute for the wholeness of this system. It's not an imperative to be a good citizen, you need to produce offspring. That's part of the base programming. That's part of the reproduction program that keeps people stuck inside the reality programs that are connected to enslavement. So we don't need to put more into that, just to put that in context so you know I'm very clear on that one. Yes, I got a child of my own, but I was not supposed to have that. That's some of the trickery that I came under. And you know, as many of us that are doing this, we are from time to time being pulled in directions that we, seen in hindsight, could say, probably not the best choice, right? But we thought it was the right thing to do because that's the factory program of the base program, the setting that we are under. But that's part of the challenges we have in this work, to get rid of the factory program so that we understand, well, I am an individual being, and what do I need to do to develop the code systems? And as I said about with the females, well, it's in a way, it's for females, it's much more simple. If we stop orienting ourselves towards the inner space of others and look at our own inner space and our own female potentials as the fourth cycle before the fall of Atlantis and the fourth cycle after, and clear out the right side of the fourth cycle after the fall of Atlantis, so that we don't fall into the priestess, Vika, witches, maiden, stupidity programs, and get rid of all of that and get to the highest potentials we actually had during the times of Atlantis. That will kickstart our fifth chromosomal configuration, not as priestesses, because that's part of the fall of Atlantis. So if you were a priest in Atlantis, fuck that configuration, get rid of it as quickly as you can, because that's the beginning to connect to the dark snake and the dark masters. You were not a priestess. A priestess indicates someone who's running a temple, and a temple is always connected to some god. So you were not a priestess. So if you do get that, get rid of that. If you're a priestess in Lemuria, same shit. We did not have priestesses in Lemuria. Okay? Because we did not have temples. Temples are a worship of the gods, and the gods are the aliens that have come in as part of the hijacking. That's an inserted program. But it is a very strong program that has been utilized in many versions and forms. So we need to figure out, what were we in Lemuria? What were we in the times of Atlantis? What type of civilization were we? What were we working with? And I recall the times of Atlantis, which I was not part of the Atlantean main city, but I was in the outskirts in some of the other colonies. We were working with the transformation of energy, as always, in materials, working with stones, working with crystals, doing pottery, doing all sorts of very boring stuff. But we are not just doing pottery, we're working with the holographic, crystalline decrystallization processes to transform the solidification of matter. We would do that in pottery. We would do that in carving furniture. We would do that creating new forms, because we're not just using tools to do so. We are also using consciousness. We are transforming energy as we took things and changed them from one form into another. We learn to master the energies of the materials we're working with our consciousness. So it might look as if we're working with clays with our hands, but we are actually working with the materialization, dematerialization processes, from which we would recreate clay vessels or pottery of all sorts, putting on all beautiful intrinsic patterns on it, so that we could capture the configuration that we have created, so that we could put all of these different bowls and potteries and whatever, and put water into them and work with the energies of the water to configure it into that configuration that we have put into the pottery or the bowl, and kept with different beautiful symbols that would align with certain levels of what we would call the fairy kingdom, or the diva, the middle domain entities, which would not tie them to the bowl, but it was a joint work with these different middle domain races, again trying to undo the effects of the outer domain so they could realign with the density 2 energies. So therefore, there is a beauty in the most simple task of working with materials. But today we have got materials that are so produced that they hold no energy whatsoever. They are dead matter, literally. So that's why we can't really work with any of the materials that we have today. So that's some of the things that we were doing in the female communities. We were working, following the original principles, the laws, and the rules of engagement, as well as the principles of energy and consciousness, as the progressive worlds and the councils were reminding us of in the holographic teaching system. So we were trying to recreate the original features of the progressive worlds inside this reality, whereas the males, as always, got more concentrated on using technology to do the same thing, which we know is one of the D13 collective main features and main objectives to work with, which is a good thing when we're working with it correctly, so to speak. Technology can definitely have, an important place in the universal structures, but it must be worked with in the correct manner. Technology should only be used to transform energy, and it should only be used if it is under the control of a consciousness being that is working with it to upgrade it constantly, to follow the elevation and upgradings of the reality fields they're part of. Because if you create technology, as we're doing on our planet as well, we've got shitload of effects and technologies and cars and computers and what have you that are connected to the third cycle energies. They fill out space. They have a purpose in space, but they are tied to a frequency type of energy that has the same negative effect as the 60% of organic vessels that are tied to the base program, are just filling it out and maintaining the base program, upholding the base program. The artificial programming, cubes and elemental setup where these three energy field, biofield, emotional field, mental field, clones are walking around being upheld by the elementals they are connected to, and therefore they are just run by the lowest forms of energy. And they are producing all sorts of soulless, energyless items, which are also literally littering, polluting our reality. So we are having a huge problem with an overproduction of empty vessels, overproduction of energy-less items, overproduction of distortion energies, overproduction of the residual energies of the elementals, the wrongful use of the elemental energy, which used to be what we call avian reptoid beings from the middle domain that were captured and stuck in the racial grids due to the wrongful use of work with them, tying them to the nodal points, which are some of the things that the dark forces are really skilled at, which the Dracos could do as well, and which they did. And that's why some of the middle domain entities are now stuck in the older levels of the racial grid and have become the elementals. And they are overproducing what we call negative energy units that are keeping the configuration of the base program intact. So now you begin to see we are in a base program that is circulating polluted, contaminated, infected, distorted energy on all levels of its existence. And females can have a huge part of that if we purify ourselves, if we do not have this need to merge with male energy. Just let it go, let it be. It's not yours to be part of. And then reconstruct the original higher order energy system from where we can work with progressive worlds, let's call it ideologies, ideas, and dynamics, and recreate the Lemurian X chromosome to its highest level, where we really began understanding the complexity of the 410 pillar and the responsibility of the 410 pillar, taking that with us into the beginning of the X chromosome, which unfortunately never reached its peak in Atlantis, because as the males also progressed with their 3-5 configuration in Atlantis, they did not understand how to purify their Y chromosome and third cycle energies, and that got the better of them in all of their technologies. And that's why we have Atlantis that never really peaked. It began to fall before the highest level of the male and the female X chromosome of fifth chromosome energies were developed. So that's part of some of the challenges that we have. We need to rediscover the potentials of the highest level of our X chromosome, and that's the bridge that we need to build into being able to complete the 3-9 pillar, because as we build the extra leg into our right-sided X chromosome and make it the 5th chromosome, we get a configuration of 9, and that means we master all of the 9 dimensions of the outer domain. The physical plane of existence in the outer domain is composed of 9 layers. I know I haven't mentioned that. I'm only working with what we call the density versions of it, but technically it does have dimension 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and 10 to 12. But the 10 to 12 is part of our template, so that's why we get the configuration of the 3 triangles that give the 9th dimensional configuration, which is the top point of human civilization as it is right now. If we do manage to get into the 5th chromosomal level, there we will begin to add in the 6th dimensional energies, which is the 6th chromosomal feature, and then we get from 9 to 11. So you kind of see, do we have a 5-5 configuration? There will be people that do have that one, but it's not necessary, because we're always clearing out one cycle, stepping into another one, and what is in between is our present version of ourselves. So our personality matrix should not be of father-mother, but it should be of past cycle, present cycle, future cycle, from where the midpoint, the top level, the synergetic level, is configuring, reconfiguring, transforming the past into being the highest version of who we can be in this life, and by that drawing in the energies of our future selves and the future cycles, pulling in the energies of the future cycle so we can create our future selves. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. So that we can leave behind everything that is tied to the past in our timeline work with our heart field configuration, lift it to its synergetic higher state in the mental configuration where we understand the sciences of everything we're doing. And from that scientifically type of work that is connected to the timelines of the heart field with the correct vibration of the highest purity rate of our organic vessels, the highest standards in our hearts using the principles, we can then begin to work with the rules of the races around us, which again gives us another perspective of the self's other configuration. And with that understanding of the true level of the 410 cycle, I know it's a little bit cryptic what I'm saying here, but I'm struggling to find the words, and I'm not done with the process myself, so I'm just saying this is what we need to do, but we're starting out something. We're cutting the path for this, cutting loose the old, so we can create that trinity structure where we will work with the correct energies of our molecular state, where we are having the past X and the future X, but in between we are who we are in that trinity that could become the 9 layer, that could become the 12 dimensional features. But that is what we're clearing now, but we're clearing it by the transformation of the energies of the past and learning from the past and undoing the effects of the past on the timelines via our heart field. But it's the mind field that can look into the future and reconnect to the future configuration of the upcoming cycles. Again, understanding the dynamics of the pillar project and the 511 pillar, which is the 5th cycle consciousness structure. And that we must transfer into our current personality matrix and change the X chromosome of the reseeding into becoming the future 5th chromosomal level, which means we must transform all of our connection points of the past that leads to the fall and the reseeding so that we can reconfigure the past X chromosome, dissolve that, transfer what can be used from there into a present day personality configuration, and from that begin to pull in the 511 pillar consciousness understanding and teaching systems where we can reconfigure our original and our current type of energy configuration so that we in our future X chromosome upgrading of the highest potential of our X chromosome can become the 5th chromosomal level. I know this is very bad explanation, but that's the best I can do right now as I'm seeing it right now. And you can hear in this explanation, I'm still in the process. Once I've mastered the process, I will come out more clear, put it into the boxes, put it into the right understandings, and with that work with it from the level that it truly deserves. But that's the process for all of us. And when we talk about the 2-8 pillar and the work that we can do there is where we will fight all of the negative female energies and what took place in the second cycle, both males and females. But our work must be to purify our X chromosomal features so that we will not fall into the traps of what female energy, what the progressive races have been put under, either by their own free will or by encapturement or by enslavement or by oppression or whatever it is that has been done to the progressive races of the original true human lineages inside this reality. Because that is what the X chromosome carries in the middle. The Y chromosome carries the humanoid genetics. Thank you.